Based on Shiji's recent press release about their new PMS feature, I had the opportunity to sit down with Kevin King and ask him about the value and why it's important for hotels. Here's a shorter edited version with the most important parts from that conversation. Enjoy. Just released a press release about the new features of the Shiji PMS, Shiji Enterprise Platform, which is called Single Guest Profile. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Single Guest Profile has been one of the pinnacle points of our evolution of what we call the Shiji Enterprise Platform. All the modules that are within the solutions that we have, such as the PMS, through to meeting and events, through to activities, and then on to point of sale, and across into other solutions from Shiji, into stay or into dine, all resonates from one single guest profile. And this profile is really one. Every time that a guest changes, whether that changed themselves or whether changed by the hotels, it is immediately available towards all of those other systems.
What you're saying is the guests can make adjustments to their own profile, and that is immediately reflected across the enterprise of solutions that the hotel might be working with.
Absolutely. That's the whole holy grail of having a single guest profile, one central point. And therefore, therein lies our API strategy and the true API strategy, whereby web development organizations can have the ability to connect, be able to expose the profile of the guest and then enable them to upgrade. Our own NGX project that we have for the digital engagement with the guest also has the capability to allow the guest to modify their own data, not just have to rely upon the hotels.
Are there any other tangible benefits that it brings to a hotel's operations and the guest's experience that a hotelier can't afford to ignore?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you really look at it, the data mess that is out there today in terms of a profile goes away. It's not a profile that is sent to somebody else, that's sent to somebody else in order to create a CRM or in order to create a central profile level that has to be managed across multiple different organizations and then has to be shared back. We take away all that pain, and that pain then comes to this single point of responsibility in a very secured way.
In terms of the hotels that have already adopted the single guest profile, can you talk a little bit about what tangible improvements that they've seen around guest satisfaction and also loyalty?
It enables our hotels to really be able to link their loyalty much closer, but enabling the loyalty vendors not to actually control the data of the profile, but to coexist with the profile information. The tangible benefits to the hotel from a business point of view, it reduces their risk of having the data everywhere and therefore having the minimal data to be able to share to others.
I'm checking out of the Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong, about to board a flight, head to London, check into the Peninsula in London. All of my history and the preferences that have been acquired through my stay in Hong Kong, and maybe I've stayed once or twice before in peninsulas, but not so often. But what they have on me is essentially automatically transferred across to the London property and effectively all their properties, so that it ensures that the hotels can maximize on my future experiences so that everything's catered for to my preference.
Absolutely. And in fact, nothing is transferred across to London. It happens to be there waiting. It's already on the one single guest profile. So it is that single guest profile. With our integrations that we have and the connectivity that we have towards our Review Pro platform, all of that guest-centric comments and opinions of the guest are already there. Are already there about what happened in Hong Kong, already there about what happened in London. So by the time the guest gets to London, they actually know what happens in Hong Kong, if there was any news that they wanted to share about their trip in Hong Kong, or if they had an issue in Hong Kong that they wanted to report. The hotel's able to know that, and then when they get to London, they're able to service that for the guests.
Some guests aren't so willing to give so much information of themselves up. So is there any difficulty in having the guest agree to share their information or certain elements of their information?
Comes back to security, comes back to data sovereignty, and it comes back to choice of the guest. The guest owns that profile and where that profile is seen. So the guest can always opt in that they want their profile to be shared with others, or they can opt out. whereby the profile is only used in the place of booking.
If I'm making a reservation in a Peninsula hotel again, and I don't want them to have so much information about me for that particular stay, I'd like everything to be really quite private. Am I able to nominate that during the reservation process to say, this is not going to be available?
Yes, actually, if you don't want to be opted in for your whole profile not to go to London, then all of your profile does not go to London.
Right.
If you only want certain amount of information to go, then that would be another situation that they would handle for us to just send limited information towards the other hotels.
How, in your opinion, does the single guest profile feature enhance the personalization of guests' experiences outside of what we've just discussed?
It allows you to really understand your customer and not have the many hundreds or even thousands of duplicate profiles shared around the world. It's about having an owner of the profile, and the owner of the profile comes from the hotel groups. And many of the groups that we work with today do that. They see the value of having this single guest profile so they can offer the best in-class service to the guest wherever they go throughout their network of hotels. There's two ways to manage profiles. We have AI engines that run in the back. Every time that something happens with the guest, every time that a touch point of a guest happens, we will validate whether this guest is already in the database of the hotel. If there's a match to the points that to that particular hotel group uses, we can automatically match it. These profiles become very homogeneous across the whole group. So it's not just the fact that there's a single guest profile. There's a whole engine that runs behind it, largely powered by AI, largely powered by individuals that are working with the guest to make sure that there becomes that single guest profile.
Multiple profiles is quite common in our industry, especially in the larger chains. How would single guest profile coordinate with the hotel to make sure that they're able to nominate the correct profile for that guest and then merge them so that they're getting the right profile every time?
That's a configuration, and it's also logic, and it's also common sense. And it's also taking fear away from letting AI take over a little bit of the job, or giving a component of AI and a component of human touch. And when we do the configuration with our hotels, when we ingest the data, when we migrate a hotel or a group of hotels from a legacy solution or another cloud-based solution into the enterprise platform, we set up those rules. And as the information is ingested into the database, it will run through those rules and to then validate what that consolidation of profiles are. Allowing the system to consolidate all those profiles then also has the power of the next. And the next power is that with that consolidation, you get a true view of what the value of this guest is to your property, but also then to your overall group as a global customer, not only as a local customer. So the value of having that single guest profile enables you to see the value of your guest.
If you were confronted by a hotelier about this exact issue and they're highlighting to you their skepticism, what would you say to them to help them get past that skepticism?
Referenceability is the most important thing. Don't believe me, let me show you. We spent copious amounts of years and with a lot of very bright brains and a lot of money in order to actually build what we say is the holy grail of what our solution is made up of. We have customers that are already enjoying the way that this works for them. So it's not a matter of just listening to what I say, listen to what my customer says.
The experience for the customer from check-in right through to check-out, how does the single guest profile enable hotels to provide that seamless and personalized experience for their guests for the entire duration of the stay?
It all goes back to the old adage where look to book is the beginning of the journey of the guest, all the way through to the time the guest checks out and beyond. And the look to book, especially when you're promoting a direct booking on the website of the hotel, for example, that direct booking needs to come that they need to know me. And therefore, how do you know me? Then the guest can log in and they can see their one profile. They can see all of their stays before. And also in the back end, we have all of their preferences because they own the profile. They can update the preferences directly. They can update their likes and dislikes and many other data points that we have within the profile.
A hotel or a resort, for example, might have other technology that is not directly from Shiji that they're using. How easy is it for the single guest profile and for your products to be able to integrate with those third-party platforms?
We have product and services that we can provide to our customer base, but as we migrate customers from their legacy core systems into Shiji, they may keep a spa system, they may keep a golf system, they may keep a POS system, for example. And that's what we call coexistence. The other solutions that are out there today can actually come to connect into the Shiji ecosystem. As long as those systems are sanctioned by the customer, then we will do the integration for those third-party systems.
How customizable is the feature of the single guest profile for hotels when they're setting it up? Based on their star rating, and what type of flexibility is there in the configuration?
There are some people that want to have single guest profile across a group, but there are other people that don't want a single guest profile across the group. They'd rather leave it in their region or they'd rather leave it in their hotel. And that comes to play when you have an owner of a hotel that might be a franchised owner of a major hotel group. And the owner has their data and their guest, but the membership data will be coming from the major hotel group. We have to be able to cater for the disciplines of the international hotel group, but also the nuance of what the requirements of the local owners are, and therefore that the local owners may own their data that is related to their profiles, and also that the international major accounts would own the data from their membership database.
How does the single guest profile change loyalty programs so that they're more than just points and perks?
Know your guest. That is the very first fundamental thing. And if you have multiple profiles out there, as we've been talking about, you don't know your guest. You don't know what the value of the guest is. You don't really know what their preferences are. You really don't know what their likes and dislikes are. You don't know what their dietary habits are. You don't know anything about the guest. All you know is that maybe they stayed before. Knowing your guest enables you to do more than just giving them a reward of a point. Then you can start with experiences. And then you can start with how you need to service the guest. It's about knowing your guest because that's where loyalty comes in. Loyalty is not about points. Points mean prizes, and you get that when you stay. That's a given. That's an expected. What's not expected is how you know me and how you can service me and how I can feel like I'm coming home or I'm going on holiday or I'm taking my family. And then next time I take my family, I'm welcomed as a special guest with my family. So I'm looked after differently. You need to know the guest in order to be able to service the guest. And if you have 100 profiles about that guest, you know nothing about them.
You mentioned earlier when we were talking about the consolidation of data, and that's been a real bear bug for our industry over recent years. Not only the consolidation of it, but the cleanliness of it, getting the right data to consolidate, and then the ongoing management and security of that data. How does Shiji ensure that the guest data is really going to be secure and then complies with the international privacy regulations that do vary around the globe as well?
Data is in different elements. One, data of the profile, but there's also data of the statistical data and being able to link that statistical data to the performance of the hotel or the performance of that guest. This is very important in a security level. And that's why we have a different team that works on what we call the data lake. And the data lake not only consumes or ingests data from a PMS, it also ingests data from our point of sale system. But this is transactional data, and transactional data that is securely linked, not to the data of the guest profile, but just a secured token key between the data lake towards the guest profile. So in the data lake team, they actually see nothing about the guest, but they're able to report back to the group through secure connectivity about that guest. And that runs into the fact of being able to see all of the data in terms of statistical data of the performance of that guest or the performance of that company or the performance of that travel agency. So it just doesn't look after the guest in a single profile. It also looks after the companies, travel agencies, and also the bookers who book on behalf of. There's a lot of data that we do look after. There's a lot of data that we hold securely across the different platforms, and that through the data lake and through the visualization engines that we have are able to present that in a very consumable and also recognizable way to make decisions. So decision-making data.
It's also a game of balance when it comes to the personalization for the guests, as well as increasing the needs around or the concerns around privacy. So can you talk a little bit about how Shiji balances that need between the personalization and the privacy?
We have profile stores that we hold the data within. Profile stores are created in the regions where the hotel happens to be located. And so therefore, where the reservation is first created or where the profile is first created, the customer has the opportunity to not share that data, opting out. And therefore, it resides in the location where the guest resides, or the guest makes the booking and decides not to have their profile shared. That is the real pinnacle of how this works around the world. Still single profile, still one profile, but only single profiled when the guest decides that they want to have it on a global level or whether they want to have it on a local level. If they want to have it only on a local level, their choice. Then they go to London, then they create another profile in London, but that's the guest choice. Then let's say they've created 3 profiles that are around the world. One, let's say, is in Australia, another one is in Dubai, and another one is in London, across this one group. Then one day they decide, I want to be part of this hotel's loyalty, and therefore I need to opt in because loyalty means I'm visible around the world. Then all they need to do is say, I opt in. And once they opt in, we are then able to do that AI engine that I mentioned before, and then do the matching and merging and consolidate them all into one.
There are challenges that hotels typically face when it comes to consolidating guest data. Can you talk about some of the challenges that your customers have seen, and how does the Shiji Enterprise Solution single guest profile address those challenges?
The main challenge comes from the migration of data from the legacy systems or other cloud-based systems. The migration of data is key because many of these hotels have been, or groups have been, on old legacy products for 10 years, 15 years. We've been very, very successful in having our teams build what we call the data migration, to take all of the data from the various different siloed systems that are around the world, legacy systems, and even cloud-based systems which are siloed as well, and be able to bring that data in, be able to match and merge that data based upon the rules and the AI engines that we have, and then go live with really what is a single guest profile. So being able to take the, let's say, 100 profiles that are around the world into one.
What is it then, in your words, that makes your solution superior, providing that unified competitive advantage that maybe other systems can't match?
The technology in itself enables the ability to scale around the world. And therefore, we're not just talking about we can do it in Europe for you, based upon our technology, but it actually means that we can truly do it around the world, be it from the US or the Americas all the way through to New Zealand and everything in between, across ERP systems, across HR systems, business operation systems, the GDS systems that they connect to, the distribution systems that are connected to. Data is very wide and very vast, and customers that really want to science data are able to do that when we have the data lake, and that data lake takes the silos and puts it into one. And then that one is helping to feed information about the guest, and then the serviceability of the guest, but also the recognition from a loyalty perspective and an experiences perspective, as well as a recognition from the business to see what they are getting value back from utilizing this whole ecosystem of connected solutions.
What would you say are the biggest risks that hotels would face if they were to not move forward by implementing a single guest profile, especially given data-driven demands of a modern hospitality business today?
Continuing to have that siloed data, not getting to really understand your true guest, leaving it to somebody else to hold your data or to switch your data, and therefore you don't have control of your data. It's extremely important in today's world to have control of your data. The sovereignty of the data is getting stricter and stricter. And there are many financial penalties that these hotel group will have, as well as independents will have, if data is not managed correctly.
Can you talk now a little bit about Shiji's commitment to ensuring the single guest profile feature does remain indispensable as the core of your offerings or Shiji's offerings?
We created the single guest profile. I'm yet to see another company that actually has the ability to truly have a single guest profile without having to replicate the profile in either above PMS solutions or above cloud solutions, having to take the data and then consolidate it somewhere else. That's just a copy of what the bygone years have all been about. We were very fortunate that we were able to build from the ground up, and that build from ground up is the ability of us to be able to do this single guest profile. It's not just about a commitment of making sure that that single guest profile is going to be there from a Shiji point of view, but it's going to be there at an industry level. It's very, very important that while many people don't see how it all works in the back, many security departments who have vetted and validated see that, and legals like that, love that, in fact. It's very, very important that all other contributing systems or all other systems in the industry today follow the same suit.
How does Shiji expect to maintain its competitive edge and then continue to provide that unique value in the face of upcoming potential similar products and solutions in the market?
Be great at what we do in continuing to build and have a further evolution of our technology stack, not just along the single guest profile, but also along how that services other technologies that we continue to build or we continue to acquire to bring into the organization that adds more benefit to the customer.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for your time. I really appreciate you joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Andre.
Okay.